Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales, featuring Michael St. John, Pat Trammel, and special guests. Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales starts now.
The band is back together again, almost. Yellow again, everybody. It's Randy Hales, ORH to you, and we're ready to go. We're in Jonesboro, Arkansas, in the studios of Talking Memphis Wrestling, originating from Restream TV, and we're simulcasting on the Randy Hales Facebook page, the Power Pro Wrestling Facebook page, Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame Facebook, as well as RB Hills on Twitter, and the Classic Memphis Wrestling YouTube page. And wow, our producer Adam Dunn is not on screen today, but he has done a dynamic job. You saw the show. I hope you saw the show last night, the Power Pro Wrestling show, and you saw the bells and the whistles, and you're going to see them today, and a lot more as Adam's working hard. A couple of things that I want to tell you is you've heard me say that it is my mission to keep the legacy of Memphis wrestling alive by showing and talking about old school classic Memphis wrestling. I have a new mission. My guests, my panel, my friends, my producers, and certainly the audience. You guys that's nice enough 2 days a week to take time out of your schedule to talk and watch Memphis wrestling. My new mission is make this absolutely without a shadow of a doubt the best, whatever you want to call this, a podcast, a video cast, a talk show, whatever you want to call it. We want to make this the best. How you can help us, how everybody can help us is share everything we do. All the promotions, plug in the show, plug that and share that or like that or whatever you want to do. Just help us advertise because we can't make this as big as it can be without more people, without more viewers, without us promoting as much as we can. I've always said I'm promoter born, promoter bred. I want you guys to be promotion bred by help sharing this. So that's my goal. And I put my money where my mouth is because today I went out and purchased several things. I bought a new headset. It's real comfortable. I bought a new microphone. I think that it probably sounds real professional. So we're all good. And I also went out and I'm excited about this, bought a new laptop with the up-to-date web camera. Now, I'm not using that laptop today because they were doing a lot of stuff with it and I can't pick it up until tomorrow. Even though they got my money, I still got to wait for it tomorrow. So next Monday will be the first show, the debut of the new laptop, and I'm really excited about it. So, folks, I just wanted to tell you that, asking for your help. I'm begging, I'm pleading, I'm just saying we need help and really promote this. And by the next time we come together with our panelists, with today's Chris Ellis, who hadn't been here in a long time, and Pat Trammel, I'm going to have them get with Adam, and there's a way that you can share your Twitter, which is both of those guys, that's what they use. You can share your Twitter, and then they can watch on your feed too. Everything we have to do. Today on this show, we will talk some later in the show about the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. As you know, starting this entire year, we've been posting and we've been placing into the Hall of Fame people, and I think my friend Pat will really do a good job on this guy, the latest member inducted last week to the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame is Big Mouth Scott Bowden, my
All
last person
right.
in the April class of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. We have three videos, one involving me, one involving Miss Texas, and one Adam. I have not I hadn't previewed this, but Adam assures me, even though the title of the clip is indecent exposure, that it won't get us kicked off the internet. So we will show that. That'll be coming back in a little bit. Our question of the day is we'll take a look back and we'll think. We'll do a little bit of a fantasy booking, fantasy promotion, and we will do that here on this program today. And the question is take it back to 10 years after Power Pro went away in 2008. Who would the next Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee be? Now, I know who Chris Ellis would say, but in 2008, 10 years after that, would have to build it around somebody other than Jerry Lawler or Bill Dundee or Jeff Jarrett. The person Chris is talking about is no longer with us, but certainly he was one of the all-time greats. There's no doubt about it right there. Now, enough of me talking, and I think if you don't mind, Pat, because you're with us every week, just missed 1 week. We want to bring in from Southside, Arkansas, my friend. He's from the Jonesboro area originally, went to Nettleton High School, and we'll welcome to the show right now, Chris Ellis. Chris, tell us what in the world you've been doing the last 3 months, not been on here, being Mr. No Show, and tell me how you like this new setup that we have today.
Oh, it's great to be back, Randy. This new setup's outstanding. Of course, the last few times I was on it had audio issues, and this is fabulous. So it's great to be back and be a part of the show again. I've always loved Memphis wrestling and love to keep it alive and still going strong in 2022. So just thrilled to be back on tonight.
And we'll have opinions, we'll have video, we'll have all kinds of things. His home is in Alabama. He is our resident Alabamian, even though Adam Dunn, the producer, who's not on screen, but he lives 5 minutes from Alabama. But Pat Trammel travels all over the globe. He's here today. He's together with Chris Ellis because our buddy Michael St. John's not here today. But what in the world is going on with you, Pat?
The two things have are making my day. Number one, it is great to see my good friend Chris Ellis and everybody on here, and I'm excited for our new format. But you have made my day putting my friend Scott Bowden in the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. That means a lot to me. I wish
Well,
he
I
was
knew it
here to
would.
enjoy it, but that's I miss Scott a lot, and I think he had a limited run on a part-time basis, but I think he made a real difference, and really, really excited for that. Thank you for that.
Want to say hello real quick to Frank Seaton, who's saying hello to you, Chris. Do you know Frank? Miss Seaton's son.
I do not know Frank, but hi, Frank. And I see everybody saying hi to me. It's great to be back. Hello to everyone.
Yeah,
Jeremy's
me
in the
too.
house, and Brooks is in the house. Panetta is saying hello to Pat and to Chris and to me. Jeremy is saying several things. Our guy, Farmer John, Roger Calvert, is in the house today. Greg Peel, Greg Wayne in the house. And so as we're looking back to see if we missed anything, and I think I got everybody so far. We don't have Randy West in the house, but a bunch of people. This is looking like $1 million, and I'm tickled to death about that. So, Pat, what have you been doing lately? How was your week?
My week is fine. I'm about to get on the road Thursday and do some running around, and it's been fine. I've been as you know. My oldest is in Memphis in school, and so he has learned to forge my signature on a house lease. So he's turning heel early. but we got that straightened out. So
He
anyway,
was not supposed to do that?
well, I called him. We had he and some of his friends are going to rent a house next year instead of living in the dorm. And so I get from the guy they're renting the house from a copy of the lease where my name has been signed, but not by me. And I said, bud, generally I don't, I'm a banker by trade, and generally I don't appreciate people signing, forging my name on documents obligate me for money. But anyway, we worked that out.
Would you
Again,
imagine
turning
Pat being
heel
your
early.
dad? I bet those, especially the son, I bet he gets hell. I
Uh,
bet he gets hell.
yeah. Uh-huh. Hmm.
No, I'm serious, flat out serious. Now you
Well,
spoiled.
well, I mean, come on. Let me read it. I
You
mean, I know ultimately who's going to pay for it, but at least let me see what I'm obligated for.
now, if Meg would have done that, not a word.
Well, Meg never would have done that. So there you
Yeah,
go.
your favorite. Hey, Chris, quick question off the air, then we'll get to talking about wrestling here. Thank goodness people are saying, but how's your mom doing? She had surgery, I believe it was last week or the week before. How's she doing?
Randy, thanks for asking. She's doing great. She had her left knee replaced, and she's actually going to get to come home at the end of this week. And she's doing
Oh,
fabulous in her rehab therapy, and they'll continue that in home. But she's doing outstanding. So we're thankful for that. She's ready to get back to normal. She's been limping around for about 6 months, so we finally got that corrected. But she's excited to get back to some normalcy.
one of the things, because folks, we are live as live can be. And I love live television. I love the fact this is live. It's so exciting, so fun. You never know what's going to happen. And then I can just go wherever I want to, whatever order I want to, and do the shows and play and talk about whatever we want to. And I think now, since we've done a lot of talking, we will talk a little bit about the newest member of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame. We'll talk about Scott Bowden. Scott was friends with Brian Christopher Lawler and Kevin Lawler, and he got into the business as a referee. And then I believe it was Eddie Gilbert's idea to switch him and make him into a manager, and he did a very, very good job managing. Scott, we lost 2 years ago at 46 years old. It was sad. Scott was just like me and a lot of people. Scott was a wrestling fan, grew up watching wrestling for for sure. Um, apparently, Pat wants. Oh, let's switch to Pat. Pat has something he wants to say, so let's go to him, Adam.
Well, I really don't continue to talk about Scott. I just had unplugged for a minute to take care of something, so I didn't want to interrupt you.
Oh, I thought you said, please let me
I
back
I
on. That
I did. I did. I should have hit the V instead of the M. I'm still learning, and I agree with Jeremy. This new setup is awesome. And you're right, Raleigh. Scott really did love Memphis wrestling. But go ahead, Randy. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
he did love Memphis Wrestling. Not my favorite guy in the world because his personality, getting heat and rubbing people the wrong way. He rubbed me the wrong way lots of times. He said something totally off the wall to Big Sid Vicious one time, and I thought Sid was just going to snap and kill him because Sid had returned to wrestling, trying to get back to the WWF, and he had called, and we had booked him. First thing Scott said to him was said something in a jest about Sid and Arn Anderson's knife fight. I mean, sometimes Scott would let that mouth get him in trouble, and that's why he made such a perfect heel. And we'll show a video right now, and I think you'll enjoy this. This is the first physical thing that I ever did. Again, we were talking off the air about scripted promos, and this was not that. And you can look at Dave Brown and see his reaction that it wasn't scripted, because he would have stopped it before it ever got in the air. I gave bullet points to anybody, and then they would go ahead and do what they thought. And the no-nos were obvious, but sometimes no-nos happen. And this is my first physical confrontation, and we're going to show this video right now. One of my favorite things I was ever involved in, and the very first physical thing in a babyface role, that led to a match. This led to my first match, and it drew money. Let's take a look at that video.
Type match. Scott Bowden, you've got several legitimate things to talk about. As long as you'll do that, you may have your say. Don't start on that football.
Hey, don't cut me off again, Dave Brown. You've been rude to me all day. You know why Randy Hales doesn't have the authority to suspend Jerry Lawler? Have you ever wondered that? Why Randy Hales never makes a decision? Have you ever wondered that, Dave
Hey,
Brown?
Crazy Gale.
He makes decisions.
No, he doesn't. You know why? Because he's nothing more than a figurehead. That's because he's partially retarded, Dave Brown. I didn't know you were aware of that.
Don't start with that stuff.
I didn't know you were aware of that, but Randy Hales is
Watch
partially
Dave.
retarded. Dave Brown, have you ever seen the look on a wrestler's face when he wins a big match? He's grinning from ear to ear, and he's jumping up and down. Have you ever seen that look? That's the same thing that Randy Hales does whenever he forms a complete sentence. He's an idiot. He's legitimate. Hey, let me tell you something. He does not have the power to make a decision out here. So come on out here, boy, because you can't suspend me either, because I'll slap you around. Evidently, you don't have the authority, you stinking redneck from Jonesboro. The reason why nobody ever knew he was retarded, because he lives in Jonesboro.
Don't say that again.
Nobody notices, because everybody in Jonesboro is retarded.
Come on, Scott. All right, you get ready to get cut off one more time here, because we're not going to put up on this. Come out here and talk about Randy Hales. You've got there are matches coming up this week.
He has a job here in the USWA.
This is the one line I gave.
So why they have him around? Well, many years ago.
Quit using that word.
Many years ago, Eddie
This is
Martin
my
was
line.
going through Jonesboro, and he met up with a little wrestling groupie, and now Randy Hales is the illegitimate son.
Now, stop. That's it right there. I've had it. Not
Yeah,
going to listen to any more of this. That is it. I told you, you come out here and you talk about... This Randy can speak for himself. Come on. We're in between them. Come on, Randy. Not the place for it. Randy. Scott, stay back away from it. Hey. Randy. Stay back, Randy. Stay back. Get him out of here.
I got up to the restroom and I asked Lawler, because you hear the fans chanting, "Get Buck," and Scott
All right, Randy,
threw a
hold on.
punch and almost knocked Mr. Coffey's head off.
There's. This is not the place, Randy. Hold on. I know.
This jumped the house $6,000. I wish I had the interview that I did, but do not. There's no record of it at all. Get Buck is what I'm doing, Brooks.
All right, let's just take a break. We'll be back here.
And there you have it, the big angle, and we'll get Chris's opinion first and get kind of deep dive with Pat on this thing. But Chris, my question to you is, how much did you see Scott Bowden, and have you ever seen this angle before? And did I tell you this drew money?
Oh, yes. I saw Scott quite a bit. I actually recall that interview because what stood out to me was the legitimacy of Dave being upset. At the time when I've watched it, I remember thinking that like he was really mad for using the R word on the air because things weren't quite so liberal back in that day and time. I thought Scott was really good. I thought that he was almost like a Jim. I'm not saying he was on the level of Jim Cornette, but like right after Cornette first started, and he had the ability to talk and really say things that got under people's skin, and I mean, get heat from the fans. They just disliked him. Of course, being a football guy, he was claimed to be Bobby Bowden's nephew or whatever it was. Yeah. So I always enjoyed that. I thought he did a great job. In fact, he was probably one of the last managers that really, to me, made a difference.
To me, Brandon Baxter did as well.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, I had moved south by the time Brandon came in, I think. So I didn't get to see Brandon as much. I probably saw Brandon on Dallas more than I did in Memphis. But I thought he was a difference maker. He was good.
Now, somebody on Twitter, and the comment might be here, but Kimmel Khan says, tell us Chris Ellis sounds like a great name for a show or a segment. So somebody wants a new show here that says, tell us Chris Ellis. Now, finally, we'll give Pat Trammel, I'm sure Pat wants to deep dive. Pat wants to respond to the video that we just watched and some personal thoughts, I'm sure, the phone calls, the conversation he has and has had with Scott Bowden that just sad we lost him at 46 years old. Pat?
Well, I'll say this: I have always loved that angle for your work in it and Scott's work in it, and I never ever knew where the line came from about Eddie Gilbert and the ring rat, Eddie Marlin and the ring rat, and you know I agree with Chris. I felt like and I talked to Scott about this, and Scott reached out to me probably 18 months before he passed away.
And he passed away, and excuse me, Pat, he passed away in April of 2020, and I said 46. He was 48 years old. So continue.
Yeah. And he reached out to me. Jerry Jarrett put us in touch, and Scott was trying to figure out how he could turn his Kentucky Fried Wrestling podcast into a business, and he was restarting that, and we kind of just got to be friends. And he and I would talk a lot of Sunday nights for some reason, and I asked him why he kind of didn't pursue wrestling because I mean even before I met him. And Scott had a different personality. I mean, you kind of had to look over, some of the stuff he would say, and he kind of didn't have a filter on some things, but I enjoyed talking with him, and he, I thought he could be as I I mean, Chris, I thought Scott could be as over as Cornette ever was. I thought he really was. I thought he had a different stick than Cornette. I thought Cornette was a little bit more cartoonish, and I thought Scott was just the most natural heel I've seen. I mean, I think he just came across and he could be that way when you were friends with him and you were talking to him. We never actually met. He was living in L.A. Scott spent his career working in in kind of production, and I think he did some stuff for Disney and et cetera. My impression is he mostly freelanced a lot of that stuff, but he was out in L.A. for a long time, and he was married, and his wife was in band management. Um, but I think he could have been a fantastic manager. And I asked him why he never pursued that, and he said he really didn't. That never was a goal of his. And I think Randy, you've made mention sometime that Scott was, just he wasn't available to be on the road. He wasn't available to make the town, so there was just a limit to what you could do with him. But I thought he could be Jimmy Hart level. I really did. And I think he was a really smart guy. I mean, he's a really intelligent guy. So, and I do miss him. I really do.
I thought he was a natural. Like
Yeah,
to me, all the great ones are just natural. I mean, I'd never met the man, never had a conversation with him, but it appears that he, like what you saw was what you got. I mean, like those lines came from him. Like he said that to Sid. He said that to Sid in the dressing room about the knife fight with Arn, because that was just his natural
that
things
that
he'd
was
say. No,
uh,
no filter, no
that
filter. He just worked.
that was totally him. Absolutely. Yeah, no question about that. That's something he would that's something would just come straight out of his mouth, and he would just mouth off sometimes about something or somebody. I'd say, "Now, Scott, you know." Yeah, I mean, there's no reason to say stuff like that, and I think he was just a natural heel.
Yeah, I
He,
didn't like the guy. I did.
yeah,
That didn't mean I didn't book him. I did not like him at all. So I'm not going
I,
to all of a sudden, with the fact that he's dead, say that I liked him because I didn't.
and
But
I absolutely know you did. Yeah, and I respect that. And Um, Brooks, what I meant was, I think if he had stayed in the business, he could have developed that. But yeah, I know, and he had that side of him that you just kind of had to shake your head sometimes and say,
hey,
"Damn, Scott."
here's the thing: as Brooks is comparing Jim Cornette, and it's funny because everybody knows how opinionated Jim Cornette is now, and sometimes obnoxious on his podcast. Absolutely obnoxious, and certainly he has the reputation of arguing with people and being hard to get along with, all that sort of thing. But that's kind of recent news. When Cornette started out, he wanted to learn and humble. Here's the difference with Scott Bowden and Jim Cornette. Cornette was a student of the game, most of the talent. Not that everybody likes him now, but he knew how to fit in, and he was fit in as one of the boys, that sort of thing. Cornette did. Scott wasn't very popular with the boys, and certainly Lawler, because he was friends with Kevin and Brian, liked him. I didn't because he one time did uh, something. I almost fired him. Did something that I told him not to do. He went in business for himself, and so I chewed him out, and he took the ass chewing. But then he told the boys later, and of course that crew in 94 and 95, believe me, they were loyal to me. They came and said, "Hey, Bowden uh, says he's going to do whatever he wants to do because he's friends with Brian and Kevin, and if he got fired, Lawler would uh, would make me rehire him." Well, I just didn't fire him. I just quit booking him, and Lawler never said a word. That's
Yeah,
where it is. But obviously, if a guy, uh, when you combine a person's real personality, like Jerry Lawler is Jerry Lawler, Bill Dundee is Bill Dundee. Now, when you were in my hotel room on my book signing night, Pat, you and Michael St. John and Chris, I will ask you this question: how much of that conversation at the Lexington Suites on Phillips in Jonesboro back almost 2 years ago, did it seem at times Dundee was cutting a promo?
Yes, and it seemed like he was the same guy that I'd watched on TV. It was just him. It was just who he was. There was no and like I made a misstatement that night. Said something, a word that I didn't mean to say, and quickly. Do y'all
Right.
remember that?
Oh
He
I
hopped,
yeah.
remember
he hopped right on it. Like, what? What'd you say? I mean, like it offended him, and it was obviously as much respect as I have for the guys in business and the business itself. I didn't mean anything by it, but it was Bill just being the same
Old
guy I
school.
watched on TV for 40 years of my life. But now go back to Scott Bowden real quick. Don't you think, Randy, that it being the 90s that Scott came along when managers were being phased out? They were kind of being phased out by that time. You agree?
You know, certainly our business was getting phased out all the way, and the territories were. And to tell you the truth, I can't Can anybody tell me when Vince stopped using managers?
Paul Bear with Undertaker. That be it. Dutch with the Harris brothers.
Right.
What they were called something else, but Dutch was there. Oh no, Dutch with Jack Swagger.
Yeah, yeah.
My point on Scott Bowden is that I think he's certainly talking ability. His first promo was probably better than Cornette's first promo, but I think Scott, if he would have, somebody would have beat the crap out of him if he would have went to another territory. And Cornette, Dennis Condrey, Dundee both slapped the heck out of Cornette, so he could be obnoxious. I just don't think. But besides, I mean, Pat, you said this to me before, and you said it just a minute ago. Scott did not want to do this. He never had a desire to be a full-time wrestling guy. He never had the desire to go to New York or anything else. He had other dreams. Am I right on that?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. Although I think Scott loved wrestling more than most of us. Now he may have you know maybe he regretted not doing that, but Scott, I think he majored in journalism, and I think his first job was he was like a technical writer for somebody. So I mean, like you are. I mean, he's a intelligent guy, but he just said he never really wanted to do that full time. So, but I mean, he loved wrestling, obviously, and I go back and listen to some of his Kentucky Fried Wrestling podcasts that are still available on YouTube and also I think on the Apple podcast, and he had a pretty deep knowledge of wrestling,
Yeah,
and
absolutely, 100%. And a lot of that knowledge came from his fandom and then being around different people and asking questions. Certainly never said that he didn't love Memphis wrestling and grew up. And his podcast, and help me again, the name of the podcast was
Kentucky
Kentucky Fried.
Fried Wrestling.
Right. It was a hell of a podcast. It was
Yeah,
absolutely a hell
it
of a
was.
podcast. And we'll,
Randy, I want to ask you something. Something
okay.
came up, and I want to ask you something historical. Um, I had heard this before. We were talking about how Jimmy Hart was Jimmy Hart, Lawler's Lawler. I think Scott to some extent was Scott. The person I've heard in Memphis wrestling, and I think I heard this either from uh, I may have heard it on one of Dutch's podcasts, or I may have heard it from Jerry Jarrett, that the wrestler who was the least like himself in real life.
Hey, can I say who I think you're going to say first?
Yeah,
Handsome Jimmy Valiant.
that's exactly right. I said he was the most calm, humble guy backstage, and I think maybe, and I don't want to speak for people who had been around him, but a little bit shy and not real outspoken. But when you turn that camera on, he was a different deal.
That's for sure. And I got to do a little Handsome Jimmy that's right. Adam can read my mind as he came right to me. I came rolling into Memphis. TWA, tell the ladies, Handsome Jimmy is on the way. I'm a rocker. I'm a roller. I'm a little funky too, raised by Gypsy. Oh, handsome school. Kingfish Lawler, Lancer, Dancer, Grandma Valiant. Get me some cornbread. Give me some chitlins. Give me some dumplings. Mercy. Came rolling into Memphis, TWA. All right. We'll be back in a few minutes with more of the Scott Bowden conversation, 2 more videos. And here is kind of a controversial, because people are making it a controversial, and I get it, because it's all about a lot of the younger wrestlers here, the younger wrestlers today. And it goes back since the beginning of time. They were wanting Jerry Lawler to pass the torch. I don't even know what the hell that means. They were wanting Lawler to pass the torch 30 years ago. People just wants that main event spot, wants the TV time, and they're jealous. But I'm telling you, there's not anybody that has been made that would do what Jerry Lawler did. Started wrestling late 60s, early 70s, started his first push as a tag team with Jim White, manager Sam Bass, late 72, had a hell of a 73 run, 74, the road to the gold, Jerry Jarrett's most brilliant angle or program or push, the road to the gold. And throughout the years, I don't care if it was in 2001 with Power Pro. The best wrestler on that television show, the best promo, the best match, the person that drew the most money, the highest rated person on the show was Jerry Lawler. This is Memphis, Tennessee. We saw the King the other night at the Grizzly game, and I thought that was absolutely cool. The King is the King, and he's the King of Memphis, and there's other people that were around for a long time, like the fabulous Jackie Fargo, and then Fargo, then came Lawler. However, Lawler still has not said, I want to cut back. He hadn't. He still wrestles almost every weekend. Now, Dundee, I can't even tell you the last time that he wrestled, but say 3 or 4 years ago, people would pay to see that. But the young guys of today, the independent guys, the guys we used to call the outlaw wrestlers, say, oh, they won't pass the torch. There's no torch to pass. And in front of a town of 50 people, if some, say, John Doe beat Bill Dundee or Jerry Lawler in a crowd, and say even if they're on the card, that so the crowd's pretty good, and then John Doe beat Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee, that's the last thing in the world the people would want to see. The last thing in the world people would want to see. Now, then when TV went away in 2001, then there was no torch to pass. Jerry Lawler put a lot of people over. How many times did he win the Southern title? 260? That means he lost it 260 times, type of thing. Jerry Lawler would put people over, and sometimes I thought he did it too much. I can remember one thing is, and I was booking, but he certainly owned half the company. And he was at a town, Jonesboro, that Burt Prentice was running, and the Colorado Kid was Burt's student or who he brought it in. I wasn't at the town, and Burt pitched Lawler ideas. Hey, we need to make a baby face. And so Lawler switched the title to the Colorado Kid in Jonesboro on a Friday night. And he didn't even tell me he did it because he didn't have to tell me. He just showed up at TV and said, oh, by the way, he said, I switched the unified title last night. And I thought, oh, my God. But, I couldn't say to Lawler, I said, are you freaking crazy? Are you lost your mind? No, I didn't do that at all. I said, let's don't spend a lot of time with this thing. I said, I don't think it'll work. But I didn't confront. I said, I don't think it'll work, and I think it's a mistake. And this is where I was going with it. And he said, well, that's better. I said, well, we can get there. And that's the way it is. So Lawler will get people over. And I can tell you one person after another he got over. So I'll let you, Chris, that rant, that tirade, that whatever it was, that monologue I just did, you're feeling Lawler and Dundee wouldn't pass the torch. Your comments to that?
Well, I'm two things. I'm in agreement with you that once TV was lost and they quit running the around the horn every week in the same towns, that there wasn't a torch to pass. But at the same time, I always go back to when he broke his leg. The year he broke his leg and was out, Jerry Jarrett said it. You've said it. Everybody said it. The business went in a tank, and he came back because the fans determine who's carrying the torch. That's just the way it is. The people buying the tickets determine who's carrying the torch. And I've said this, and people think I'm crazy, but I have had the honor to live during this era. But I also know that people may think this is nuts, but I saw Coach Bryant's funeral and I saw Elvis's funeral. And unfortunately, when the day comes, in my opinion, the King will be that big in Memphis. I could be wrong because it's 2022 now, but for the era of people I grew up with, it's on that same level. Pat and I share that love for those individuals I just mentioned, and he may or may not agree, but Lawler's held in that high regard. And so I don't think I don't care who it was, they weren't going to be on Lawler's level. That's why when he came back, they brought him back from the loser leaves town with Dundee doing the blinding of Jerry Jarrett and beating Jeff up when he's a referee. They brought him back early from that because business was down and they had to have Lawler back.
Absolutely, for sure. And Al Tuttle from Georgia is messing with you. He says, awesome. Chris is back. But then here's the dig that Al Tuttle says to Chris. He said that Terry Taylor is lurking around somewhere. So you can go ahead and cuss Al. He's a religious man, so you might not want to cuss him. But he is still kind of rubbing that into you, the fact you don't like Terry Taylor.
Al, I appreciate you mentioning that. I haven't had a good Terry Taylor rant in a long time, or the Red Rooster, I should say, I guess. But we're talking like real positive things tonight. Like Scott Bowden, the King, Dundee, we're talking real positive. So I don't want to we don't step down to talk about Terry Taylor's career.
Okay. Let's bring Pat in here. And Pat, I did a rant, and now it's about passing the torch, and now we have you back on the screen. So just kind of respond to that. The young guys, and it hadn't just started in the last year or two. It started a long time ago, and in just a minute we're going to get in the conversation who would have been the next Lawler and Dundee. We're not there yet in that part of the conversation. Just the fact about passing the torch, your comments there.
Well, Memphis is such a different territory in that you did have Lawler, who was here for so many years, and you couldn't give it up because nobody else was going to be over. I mean, nobody in Memphis was going to be over. Jerry Lawler, and I agree with Chris. When Lawler passes away, they'll shut Memphis down. If Lawler was as over in Memphis as Flair ever was in the Carolinas. He is as over in Memphis as Dusty ever was in Florida, and for a longer period of time. I just don't know. I mean, I've got some people that I like, that I've said, well, if you got to have somebody on top, try this guy. But there was never ever going to be another Jerry Lawler ever, and there's never been another. And you can talk about whether in ring he's the best of all time. On the promo, is he the best of all time? Yeah, there's somebody Dusty's probably better on the mic, in his way. Ricky Steamboat is probably a better worker, and there's I'd say there's some people in Memphis that have been here for an extended time that are just as good of workers, including Dundee. But as far as carrying a territory and having a territory that really, you're absolutely right, PJ. Lawler still is over in Memphis. I don't know that this territory would have survived. Well, obviously, it would not have survived as long as it had been with Lawler. Truthfully, this is what I think, and I hadn't really thought about it, but I think I do think this. if Lawler had not been in Memphis, I think the Memphis territory ultimately would have been something like Continental in Alabama. It would have been an okay little territory, but it would not have been, the legendary territory that it has been.
And I have a question that somebody brought up, and I disagree. But this sort of thing that we're talking about is everybody has different opinions about everything. Pat is an Alabama football fan or an Auburn football fan. I'm an Arkansas State fan. There's Tennessee fans. That's just the way it is. Somebody said they thought that Jerry Lawler was a much better heel than a babyface. And I think he's great at both. It was what the territory needed at the time. Jerry Lawler as a heel did sell out business. Jerry Lawler, the biggest financial year in the history of this company was 1983. Lawler was the babyface. Probably the second best year financially was the year that we were talking about earlier. Lawler came back from a broken leg. Now, Lawler, sure, it was cool. If you like funny for your interviews, Lawler was classic on his interviews, and he was a great heel. But he also could sell, and he could do that fired up promo, and he could get connected to the people as much as anybody I've ever seen with the same level of a Dusty Rhodes type of thing. It was just absolutely unbelievable. So I would not say I like Jerry Lawler as a heel much better than I like him as a babyface. If anything, I like it even. So answering that question, heel or babyface, whoever wants to go first can.
He's the same guy. Jerry Lawler is the same guy wherever he is right now, whether he's a heel or whether he's a babyface. It's just who's on the other side. And I'm curious about something, and I know, and you're right, PJ. I agree with you, and Scott, I agree with you. I'm curious as to if you took Lawler's career from '74 to the end of the territory. How many days was he a heel, and how many days was he a babyface?
I would say babyface more.
Okay, okay, okay.
I would say babyface, just from my memory. What is that? 20 from 74 to 2001, 27 years. I'm gonna say about 20 years to 7 years would be my guess. If I'm just guessing, and maybe not even 7 years. But now I agree with PJ. My first started liking Jerry Lawler, him and Sam Bass, and the heel interviews that they show online with him insulting Lance, and like the first day they were at Channel 5 when Lance came back. That's fabulous to me. Awesome. But Randy said it, as a baby face. I mean, the fans decided he's a baby face. They're going to cheer for Lawler. I mean, he's their guy. And I've answered this question to other people I talk wrestling with. You mentioned Flair in the Mid-Atlantic area, Dusty in Florida. They had about a decade run, 15 years. Lawler had a 40-year run on top, basically, and still on top.
Let me do a little just on the top of my head. Lawler debuted just when I say a babyface run, I need you. You're a banker, Pat, and you're an educator, Chris. So whenever I mention a babyface year, you go ahead and count it as a babyface year.
Hold on. Hold on.
He just loves ordering me around, people.
I got. Well, I'm trying to help. I got my calculator right here.
Well, tell me when I have permission to talk.
I'm just trying to help, boss. No, go ahead.
All right. Heel, 1972, 1973, babyface partially 74. Hill 75, 76, 77. Babyface 78, 79. Partially. End of 79, switched heel, broken leg. Babyface 81, 82, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89, 90, 91, 92. Short time, month or two in 93 heel, but the year basically a baby face. 94 baby face, 95 baby face, 96 baby face, 97 baby face, 98 baby face, 2000 baby face, 2001 baby face.
I didn't miss it much.
So what is it?
I got 25 and 6.
I said something in 7 off the top of my head. I didn't
So
miss
did
it
that
much.
surprise you, Pat?
Not, yeah, it surprised me it was that much because, even when he was a babyface, he was kind of a heel. I mean, he's kind of a smart ass Lance
Sure.
and everything else, but yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
sure, think of this. Let's go back with another subject as we're talking Memphis wrestling. Hope everybody will share this. Hope you like our new look here at Talking Memphis Wrestling, the new graphics. Adam doing a great job. This is fantastic. Love the new look. Hope the sound is good. Hope everything you're certainly everybody watching as how about this? Talking Memphis Wrestling, Randy Hales, Michael St. John, Pat Trammel, and Chris Ellis. Now we got Adam finally. Adam, you would have been dead if you waited for me to do a graphic. But how about that? How about that graphic, Pat? Are you proud of that? Did you send it to your kids? Show your wife?
Absolutely, I'm proud of that. Look at those handsome jets.
Are you going to show it to your mom and your sister, Chris?
Yeah. Four horsemen of Jonesboro right there.
Yeah, 4 horsemen of Jonesboro. You bet.
Yeah, it's absolutely fantastic. Talking Memphis Wrestling, and this will probably be, and I'm giving Adam a little notes as I'm talking. Most of the time we go 2 hours. I have a lot of stuff to do tonight. We'll probably go to 8:30. Adam, if you have to be out of here before then, it might be off a little bit as far as me getting us off the air, but I think I can get us off the air. If I have to, it'll be a little silly for sure. But yeah, just going back and talking about everything we're talking about, it brings back just so many great memories, just so many great memories in that time. And we'll get back to Jerry Lawler, and we will get back to the fact is, so we're going to go back, and I just remembered that I've got to upload the video. But before we get back and show a video with Miss Texas and Scott Bowden, before we get there, I want to have Chris and Pat on the screen at the same time. And Chris probably was here watching the television. Your favorite year of Jerry Lawler's career, if you would discuss that, and also if you could discuss that too after Chris tells us what his favorite year of Jerry Lawler's career he was. So let's discuss that, and I'll let you guys have it.
Man, I got to pick just one. I'm going to go back to 74. The road to the gold I was 8 years old, but I remember being entranced by, the Funks and Harley and Briscoe. And that was amazing to me to go on that run when I was a small child. And of course, my grandpa rang the bell at Jonesboro. So I was there every Saturday because it was weekly. It was weekly back then. So I was really into it. Of course, 83, my favorite match, the greatest wrestling match of all time. 6-6 of 83, him and Dundee, loser leaves town. But the number one thing I always go back to, RH taught me this, it's all about the tickets. And they drew 400 and something thousand people, I believe it's correct, on Monday night to Memphis Wrestling in 1983. The total count for the year, 400,000 tickets sold in 83. So
Chris, was W.T. Shelton your grandfather?
no,
I thought that was the bell ringer.
it was, but if he wasn't there, Alvin Luster he wasn't really my grandfather. He was my babysitter's husband, and I called him my grandfather, and he would fill in for W.T. Shelton. Yeah.
All right. So, Pat, how about you? Do you have a favorite year in the career of Jerry Lawler?
I agree with Chris. I mean, that year of '83, nobody's ever had a year like that. And he and Dundee and U.S. Grant needed General Lee, right? And Ali needed Joe Frazier, and Lawler needed somebody. Lawler needed Dundee to have the kind of run he had in '83 and before. I mean, those guys will, when they're older men, they'll probably still be trying to get a match together. But wrestling is magic in a lot of ways. Okay, when I was a kid and watched it on Saturday night, and it's Monday night memories is encapsulate a lot of my childhood. But for pure athletic wrestling, Lawler and Dundee in that run in '83 will never be equaled by anybody again. I don't think Vince McMahon's got enough money to recreate that.
It's funny how everybody has different opinions about the favorite era, and that doesn't mean the right. That certainly don't mean the wrong. When I'm talking about my favorite time, or Pat is, or Chris is, certainly it's all a opinion. Everybody has opinions, but we just had a comment that, and let me look and see who this is. Somebody said that the best of all was the Lawler Andy Kaufman deal. And even though I know it was great and gave this company a lot of credibility in mainstream press, it probably wouldn't be in my top 25. Would it?
I don't think it'd be. I don't think it'd be in your top 100. But I loved it. I loved
it. I'm with RH. I didn't like it at all.
I loved it. I loved it. I thought both, and I loved it so much. But and I'll tell you really why it's fascinating to me. And if anybody hadn't watched, I think it's 14 30-minute segments on that whole thing on YouTube. And I don't know what it's called, but we'll find it. But at the time when you were watching it, some of it's kind of silly, but that's one of the few angles that we really have from Lawler and from the whoever did that video, which is fantastic. And from later periods, I mean, I've heard Jerry Jarrett tell the story on his podcast, and he told me one time about how all that got together. I love it because it's just such a piece of Americana, and I don't think anybody. I mean, the night after Lawler slapped Coffin on David Letterman, that's all anybody talked about. And I was in college, I think, and I mean that was part of what defined that decade. So I appreciate it for that. Yeah, it wasn't the best. It was certainly not. I don't appreciate it in the same vein as I do, Dutch and Lawler, or Dundee and Lawler, or the road to the gold. But I appreciate it for what it was.
Very interesting. At this point, we're going to go back to video. We're going to go back and we're going to talk about the newest member of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame, Scott Bowden. He was inducted this past weekend, deservedly so. We showed the brawl with me, and he had a little incident with Miss Texas, WWE Hall of Famer Jackie Moore, and we'll take a look right now.
An athlete and very powerful indeed in her own right. She's a little package of dynamite, and there she is, Miss Texas, who has proven that, one, she can handle a lot of them, and she's not afraid of the devil herself. She just absolutely goes to work hard. There's been a lot of conversation, and a lot of it brought about by Miss Texas and the fact that she is looking so great. Delighted to have you out here. Want to ask you about, there's been some talk. I know at the moment it's unofficial, but I think it's getting more serious than that. A big ladies tournament they're talking about having in the USWA, Miss Texas.
Yeah, no, I heard about that, but you know what? I used to be the USWA ladies champion before I got hurt. But as you can see, I'm back and better. Now I wrestle all around the world and competed. I compete against men and women, and I beat them all. Now I will be in that tournament, and when that tournament is over with, I hope to be the USWA Lady Champion.
Well, I think there's a lot of folks that are right behind you, obviously.
Again, it always goes back to the scene, Stiller,
don't you ever get
of
enough.
each
Nope. These people can't get enough of me.
Yeah, sure.
Lance is so good.
You know,
So
unlike
good,
Dave Brown's
guys.
weather predictions, I'm rarely wrong. But last week, I have to admit, I was wrong. I shouldn't have come out here and started anything with you because, hey, let me tell you, you can handle yourself against any man here in the USWA. You've proven that to me. And I know, hey, you're talking about women's championships. Maybe I could guide you to the men's championship. You are one tough lady. Hey, I'll be the first to admit it. Hey, I love women. I love women, Lance Russell. I don't have anything against women. Hey, and I just want to extend the offer to you right now. Join me. Join me. Hey, you look back in history. Behind every successful man in history, there's been a woman. There's been a woman. And Miss Texas, I want you to be my woman. I want you to be my woman in my stable. We can go to the top, baby. I'm talking the top. Now, what's it going to take? Huh? Is it going to take a little bit of money? Is it going to take a little bit of money? Because you know I'm from Germantown, and I got that, baby. I got my daddy's Goldsmith's card right here. I got my daddy's Circuit City card. I got his bank card. Whatever you want, baby. Whatever you name it.
Scott, I don't want any part of your organization. I don't need you to come out here and offer me money, credit card. Put it back in your pocket, okay? Put it back in your pocket.
Miss Texas, now wait a minute. Evidently, you don't understand what I'm offering you.
You heard what she said.
Hey, I've never had a woman turn me down for a proposition, personally or professionally. You understand what I'm saying? Hey, take the money, baby. Take the money. Take the money. Take the money.
That is puzzling, Panetta, that we've been kicked off of
Baby,
YouTube.
we don't have to like
What
each
in
other.
the
I'm talking
world
about winning titles and money,
could
baby.
we
We
have
don't have to
done?
like each other. I'm talking about money, baby.
Come on,
Bad
Scott.
for
More money than you've ever
YouTube.
seen in your life.
That
Come on,
doesn't
baby.
make
Made it
sense.
clear exactly what she feels about it. There's your money.
You're not going to embarrass me in front of these people. You're not going to embarrass me in front of these people. You understand me?
Now this I might
Scott
see.
Bowden down on the floor. Miss Texas jumps right on him. I'll tell you, she won't back up from any of them. Bowden shakes her off, and here comes referee Kevin Christian.
Hopefully you
please,
can watch on
get
Twitter,
that idiot out of here. Thank you,
Facebook.
Eddie. Pull that son of a gun out of here. He comes out here waving money around, jumping on Miss Texas, and she wasn't about to back up from any of it. Tell you what we're going to do. Let's take a break right now, Dave, and we'll be back with action in just a moment.
Well, isn't that something? Best laid plans of mass and men. Comments, Chris and Pat. Chris, we'll start with you about that segment with Scott Bowden and Miss Texas.
Well, as y'all know, I'm not a tremendous women's wrestling fan, but Jackie was a good athlete and she could work. In that segment right there, what actually crossed my mind we talk about how people felt about Scott Bowden. Eddie came on the screen there, Randy, and I'm curious. You didn't like him. How did Eddie feel about him?
Probably worse than what I thought.
Okay,
Yeah.
I got you. Well, I mean, the segment part building up to their match and all that was good because Jackie's a great athlete, tremendous athlete, obviously by what she went on to accomplish. But I don't know that. I mean, I'm just not a big women's wrestling guy. That's just me.
What were your thoughts, Pat?
I thought it was funny when he said, "I got my dad's Circuit City card."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was a classic little piece. And again, as Adam, if you would put up the graphic, the newest member of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame this past Saturday, and certainly congratulations to his family, Scott Bowden from Germantown, Tennessee. Old Bobby Bowden's nephew. The funny thing about that whole deal is I bet there wasn't 3% of the people in Memphis, as we talk Memphis Wrestling tonight, not 3% of the people in Memphis knew who Bobby Bowden was. But still, he thought it would get heat. And obviously, his name was Scott Bowden, and he wanted to do that gimmick. And I thought it was a good gimmick because he would bring out football helmets and use them as a thing. Scott, whether he was one of my favorite people or not, he was a great talent. Great talent. As Scott's Art says, not a woman's wrestling fan. Several people talking about Facebook, and we just need the backup plan, folks. And obviously, if people don't have a backup plan, they don't hear what I'm saying now. But if you lose any feed, if you lose Facebook, try Twitter. If you lose YouTube, go to any of the 3 Facebook pages or the Twitter page. And now we will ask the question of the day, and I think we'll get a lot of conversation. We'll get a lot of debate. Everybody has already, not everybody, but there's people that's jumped in and said different names. So at the top of the hill, no doubt, was Jackie Fargo. Then it became Jerry Lawler. And then when you talk about Memphis wrestling, so many people said, and there was other top guys came in and out before a long time, from 1975 to the end. The constant was this: Lance Russell, Dave Brown, Jerry Lawler, and Bill Dundee. Who would have taken Bill Dundee and Jerry Lawler's place in the next era of Memphis wrestling? Pat, this time I think I'll let you answer that first.
Well, you said I can't say Jeff, right?
No,
Uh,
sure you can.
I think I've always thought Jeff and Buddy Landell could have fought into the next century, like Lawler and like I've always wanted to see that over an extended period of time. I thought they could have. I thought they could have had a Lawler Dundee feud for the new age.
Yes, Chris, I'll let you answer that.
Well, you and I have talked about this, RH. I've got actually a couple of answers. On the one hand, Eddie Gilbert would be my heel. He'd be my heel in that scenario. And on the other hand, I said Jeff Jarrett because he's family, and you're going to keep family on top, and you're going to trust them. But the other thing I would say, and after talking to you before we went on the air this week, BC would have been the guy, but they would have had to told him who he was. When they would have exposed that he was the King's kid, that would have pushed him right up there. I mean, he'd have been bigger than life. It'd be like Dale Earnhardt Jr. He'd have been Dale Earnhardt Jr. In what he used to racing. He'd have been the Memphis Wrestling. Now, I thought Jeff would have been there because of the family connection and the natural seemed like natural dislike he and Eddie have for each other. But now I was a big fan of Eddie Gilbert, but now I didn't know him as a person, don't know about backstage situations and whatnot, have no idea. But just work what I know about it, him and Jeff, and then if it wasn't Jeff, Brian. But I really think telling the world who Brian really was would have pushed him. My analogy was Dale Earnhardt Jr. I think that's what he would have been.
Now, Jerry Lawler started wrestling in the late 60s, early 70s. Obviously, he, at the time, he had two reasons. First of all, he wanted Brian to make it on his own, but Lawler was the top baby face, and he didn't want the audience and the masses to know that Brian Christopher, that he was old enough to have a son 22, 23, 24, 25 years old. He just didn't want to do it. The angle that you could have done would have been a sellout angle. And I 100% agree with that. And, when Jerry Lawler and Bill Dundee was working for WCW in Atlanta, and it was a situation Lawler was not going to Louisville, Evansville, or Nashville. PG-13, Tommy Rich, Doug Gilbert, and Brian Christopher carried the territory for that period. And so PG-13 was at a tag team level, and I'm not saying they were at the level that the Fabulous Ones were, main event type of thing, drawing that huge money. Those days were gone. But don't be fooled by anybody. Don't be fooled. Brian Christopher was over and PG-13 was over. And as a heel who would, from time to time, we'd switching a babyface, Doug Gilbert was over, especially in Louisville. It's another funny thing how the people were. And like in Memphis, no doubt, nobody, I don't care who you were, will get over more than Jerry Lawler. In Nashville, though, Bill Dundee, I think, was over more than Jerry Lawler. I think Dutch Mantell was over more than Jerry Lawler in Nashville. Just different towns have different personalities. They really do, and they like different people. My list, and after talking to Chris, I would say that if everybody was still healthy and everybody was still alive, everybody wouldn't have been stolen up and taken to the bigger companies. I think for many, many years, it would have been Eddie Gilbert, Brian Christopher, Doug Gilbert, PG-13. Are we missing anybody?
It's interesting. If I can, I mean, you and Chris, obviously, Randy, had some conversation about this. But one thing I'll comment on that Chris talked about was, if you had exposed Brian early on as Lawler's son, there could have been so many angles on that father and son stuff, which a lot was, really. I know you're a big racing fan, Chris. There's been a lot of Kerry Earnhardt stuff. The Forgotten Son, all that kind of stuff. And you could have even got Jeff and Brian into an angle over, their dads were partners, and you done me wrong, he done me wrong, all that kind of stuff. And the Jarrett certainly used the family dynamics for a great angle with Eddie too. And the Gilberts could have been some of that as well.
Well,
There's
I,
really no doubt there's been enough talent to take that. If wrestling had survived, Memphis wrestling as it was in the 70s and 80s, that there's enough talent here it could be thriving today.
well, I'd like to say this, Pat. You mentioned Buddy Landell. If the territories had stayed intact and everything had been like Randy said, no one had gotten sick, hurt, or passed away or whatever. Landell was fabulous. I mean, in '86, people hated him in Dundee in '86, and he could have carried on that heel for a long, long time. I mean, he just had it. It came naturally to him. So I think that's another one we can look at. And then as far as forgetting someone, there nobody really comes to mind. I feel like we've named the ones that were the ones that would be the step into that. But now, it's just hard to say because the territories were dying out in the end.
I would say, and it certainly was a part of our pro wrestling, and would have been a part of my team. And obviously, by that point, Scott Bowden was in L.A., but Brandon Baxter was a type level-headed and business type. Brandon Baxter would have been part of that group, and I would have still used veterans. Absolutely, 100%. I would have used veterans, and it's a great thing. Here's a interesting situation. I would obviously Dave was on television to 2001. Lance went away in 1989, came back in '94, stayed to '97. So the question to ask is what after Dave got off the air, retired, whatever he decided to do, would it have been Michael St. John, which wasn't real realistic for a long term thing because that's a pretty good trip, whether he lived not so much when he lived in Nashville, but when he lived in St. Louis or when he moved back to Alabama. I believe it would have been Corey Macklin and somebody. What do you guys think?
Oh, I think it certainly could have been Michael, and probably should have been Michael, but uh, somebody worked with Corey that was really good for a period of time, and I can't remember who it was. Um, you know, I don't know.
I don't remember a few shows that I did with Corey. Um, I don't remember anybody else, and maybe if Adams here and can send a comment of who has worked with Corey in the past.
Maybe
I
I
don't know. What would you think, Chris?
Yeah, no one really comes to mind. I've often wondered that. Because Lance and Dave were such a part of it. So if Michael wasn't a realistic choice, and I'll parallel this, Gordon Soley was a big part of it in Florida and Georgia, Bob Cottle in Mid Atlantic and in Smoky Mountain, Gene Okerlund was a big part of it. So who picks that torch up and carries it? And announcing is a craft. We deal with it in the racing business all the time. Finding a dynamic announcer who is a natural is hard to do. It's hard to train someone. There's just so much instinctive about it. And Lance he was the master. He was had a doctorate in that job.
After Power Pro went out off the air, Corey got on Channel 30, and a weatherman on Memphis, I believe it was Channel 13, different stations in Memphis, but I hope I'm not butchering the name, Brian Teglin. Brian was somebody that worked with Corey on Channel 30, and there was times I had many, many, many people ask me, especially in the Power Pro days, and I would maybe substitute for Dave and go out there because it was hard, even though Corey did a great job. We just recently watched on the Power Pro Watch Along that takes place on Monday. I thought Corey did an excellent job on that Go Home television, the Go Home show for the Blast Off in the Dome. He did a great job. Later on in the shows, I would jump in and help him just because it's hard, but Corey did good. I thought Corey was excellent. And for a permanent situation, for me to be a co-host with anybody, whether the second guy or the first guy, wasn't going to happen. It was more important for me to be in the back for the entire show. I would go out and do a 3-minute interview, promo. That could happen, but and every once in a while I'll be out there the whole show. But I needed to be up in that control room for sure. So, Pat, any thoughts about the announcing situation?
I mean, if you're talking about when people are getting out of the ring, I mean, I've always liked Dutch in the limited times I've seen him announcing 2 or 3 times. But he was still
There you
working.
go. There you go. There you have it. I'd have gone with Dutch as the heel announcer. He did great in Smoky Mountain. I thought Dutch is underrated in everything he's done. He's underrated as a booker. He's underrated as a wrestling talent, a talker, and certainly a color guy. No doubt. You're right on the spot. 100% on the spot. There's my vote. There's my vote.
Can you say that again? It's taken us 4 years, Chris, but he's agreed with it.
Well, I'm sure if you run your freaking mouth anymore, you'll make me hot. You just can't help yourself.
It's in honor of Scott. How about that? No, I appreciate that, and I respect your opinion, Randy. But I think Dutch would have done a great job. I liked him a lot in Smoky Mountain.
I've always liked Dutch. I've actually watched recently the British guy that does the wrestling podcast. Can't think of what it's called right now, but anyway, I've watched one of those with Dutch recently, and Dutch is really good, really insightful, has a great appreciation for the business, and just very knowledgeable, and just communicates very well. I always loved him as a worker. Thought he was great.
I think Dutch as a worker. I kind of put him in over the course of the time period. Probably. And Randy, I'm gonna miss this one, but from late '70s through to the early to mid '80s when he was here, I always thought, you think of Lawler, Lawler and Dundee, like Ali and Frazier, but I thought Dutch and Lawler had matches that were almost every bit as good.
Absolutely. There's no doubt about it. So it is 8:22, and I wanted to be out of here by 8:30, and we will do it. I'm just interested in any feedback. So a couple of things I want Adam to do right now. I would like to hear from you guys. If anybody has any suggestions about comments, any comments about the look, I wish you would send me an email at Randy Benton Hales, and hopefully Adam can get that up on the screen. Randy Benton Hales at gmail.com. Randy Benton Hales at gmail.com. The second thing I want to talk about certainly is never been this sort of thing real comfortable to talk about, but we will talk about it because here's the thing. This is not a paid program. There is not a paid wall where you have to pay to be able to watch, and it never will be. But I did want, and obviously with halves, you could donate coins, and that was very helpful, and that revenue was pretty good. Just to let everybody know, again, this is not a pay program. This is not behind the pay wall, but there's ways, if you like this program, if you like the Monday show, and Adam and I are doing some serious talk about bringing back the Thursday show because we had a viewer recommend that and ask for it. So we're seriously thinking about bringing back the Thursday show. So there'll be a lot of content that we'll be throwing at you every week. The expenses of the show, obviously, I talked about at the first of the program. We do have an expense because I felt to increase the quality of the show, because it is my mission for this to be the best Memphis wrestling program there is out there. I got new headsets. I got a new microphone. Went out and purchased a new laptop that on the Monday show we will debut that has an updated webcam. This camera is basically an older camera, and doesn't have as good a picture. So we're upgrading for the re-streaming service. Now it's called Restreaming, and that's the platform I use to simulcast on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube and everything else. That is a paid service. So even though you don't have to go to Restream to watch the show, you can't even go to Restream to watch the show. It's great. It's easy to get guests in. It's just fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And there's a cost monthly. We pay for that. And there's a couple of areas that if you're able to and if you want to and you enjoy these shows, there's two places. And Adam has that or will have that on the screen. And it is my PayPal, my PayPal, easy for me to say, and also the Cash App. The Cash App, real simple, is $ Randy Hales 1961. So remember the PayPal, remember certainly the Cash App, and remember to send me comments at randybittenhales@gmail.com. So the band was back together again, and it was so fun. It was great. All we're missing, and we'll have next week, Michael St. John will join us next Tuesday at 7 o'clock. Eventually, we'll obviously try to get it where I can produce and host right now. Adam, until I get comfortable and learn how to do it, it just makes it better because Adam's Dunn's passion and his knowledge and all that. It's like having James Estes all over again in my life or Randy West all over again in my life. It's fantastic, but eventually I'll do the Tuesday shows so we don't wear certainly Adam Dunn out, but I appreciate everything Adam does. Chris, we'll go with you. Final words, talk about the show. Do you think we can get the show to the next level? And I want to get it to the next level, and I want to get it where there's no doubt the best podcast, video cast, talk show, whatever you want to call it, about Memphis wrestling is this show right now. Thanks for being here. Final comments from you, Chris Ellis from Southside Schools.
Well,
Another part of the state.
It's great. It's great to be back. I'm so excited. The new format is awesome. It's just all going in the right direction. Randy, I think you can go wherever you want it to go because your knowledge and passion for Memphis wrestling are unmatched. And I think it's just on the upward track and will remain that way. And thanks to Adam for all his work and everything Pat and Michael do. It's just exciting for someone who has grown up loving Memphis wrestling to have an opportunity to be involved in this. And I think its future's bright and will continue to be better and better.
Pat, final words.
Always an honor to be with everybody. Special show for me. Excited that Scott's been remembered this way. Thank you for that, and thank the board of directors of the Memphis Wrestling Hall of Fame for that. But one thing I will say is to everybody watching and who joins us, and you're honoring us by being here. Randy works extremely hard, and Adam does too. Um, and Adam is an unsung hero of what we do here. We really appreciate him. But Randy works tirelessly to make this the best show he can absolutely make it. And he has been on a several month search, even before HAPS, the first time they went off, to find us the absolute best format that we can to bring this show to you. And it takes a lot of research and a lot of work on Randy's part and on Adam's part, and this service is not free. So if you can find a way and the means to help a little bit, we certainly would appreciate it. And thank you all. I consider you my great friends, and this is a great time in my week every week. So thank you. And Randy, thank you for all you do.
Thank you guys very much for sure. And want to remind everybody next Tuesday, we'll be back with Michael St. John, Chris Ellis, and Pat Trammel for Talking Memphis Wrestling back at you. next Tuesday. Really looking forward to that. Talking Memphis Wrestling next Tuesday. But man, I am fired up. I'm excited. I can jump up and down because one of the favorite shows I've ever done, one of the most exciting shows we've ever done, one of the most historic shows ever done on Memphis Wrestling took place on July the 4th, 1998. Historic because we moved out of the studio. Historic because for the first time ever, and local wrestling hadn't done it since. It was moved to prime time. It was moved to 7 o'clock. It was a part of the Star Spangled Celebration. And coming up this coming Monday night will be a special watch party of Power Pro Wrestling's Rumble on the River, right there at Tom Lee Park in Memphis, Tennessee. And I'm fired up. I'm emotional. I'm excited because, boy, Monday Night Memories in 1994 and Power Pro Wrestling's Rumble on the River, a couple of my favorite events ever, not just in Power Pro Wrestling, was one of my favorite and proud moments ever in professional wrestling. Here we did it. The new headsets, the new microphone, the return of Chris Ellis, missing Michael St. John. Pat Trammel didn't even get a F word from me today. So Pat Trammel is losing it. Pat Trammel didn't hit me the wrong way, didn't rub me the wrong way. Thanks so much, everybody, for watching today. For my producer, Adam Dunn, Chris Ellis, Pat Trammel, and the missing in action, Michael St. John, who's in Louisville, I think. Until next time, Randy Hales saying bye-bye, everybody.
Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales, featuring Michael St. John, Pat Trammel, and special guests. Talking Memphis Wrestling with Randy Hales starts now.